Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. So hello everyone, welcome to Basics Discussion Circle and Meditation. My name is Travis, I facilitate this group. So tonight we'll just hop right on into the meditation and we'll go from there. Closing the eyes and taking 3 deep breaths slowly. Noticing if deep breathing feels good. And if it does, you can keep on breathing in this way. If it doesn't, you can switch things up. Maybe even deeper still or more shallow, heavier or lighter. In long, out short. In short, out long. Just playing around for a bit, noticing what feels best in this moment. You can even pose the question in the mind as to what kind of breathing would be the most energizing or the most calming. And then just watch how the breath responds. And once you've found a rhythm and texture of breathing that does feel good, you can begin to soften into it, noticing if there's any tension around the breathing process, any sense of forcing the breath in or squeezing the breath out, and see if we can release that tension, where the breath can flow in and flow out freely, unobstructed. Relaxing the forehead and the area around the eyes, all the way through the in breath, and keeping tension relaxed all the way through the out breath. And relaxing tension through the neck and shoulders all the way through the in breath. And keeping the neck and shoulders relaxed all the way through the out breath. Doing our best to make this a comfortable place to stay. Guiding our awareness down into the chest and the area around the heart. Noticing how the process of breathing feels in this part of the body. Noticing if there's any sense of tightness or tension in the chest. Any sense of restriction around the heart. See if we can imagine the breath flowing through the tension, washing it away all the way through the in-breath, and keeping it relaxed all the way through the out-breath. If you want, you can even imagine the breath coming in right there at the heart, right through the front of the chest. So you don't have to push or pull it from anywhere else in the body. Breathing in, the breath flows into the heart, soothing the heart. Breathing out, it radiates out, opening the chest. Breathing in, soothing the heart. Breathing out, radiating out, opening the chest. You may even find it helpful to maintain a gentle smile while you focus on the heart area. And as you continue to breathe into the heart, you can allow your awareness to gradually expand out from the center of the chest, just expanding bit by bit with each breath. Down to the tips of the toes, out to the fingers, and up to the crown of the head. Just gradually expanding this breath awareness with the heart at its center. saturating the entire body with our awareness, with our breath, and relaxing any tension, any patterns of tension that arise. And continuing to expand our awareness just a little more out to the surface of the skin, noticing where the body makes contact with our clothes or with the air around us. trying out a shift in perception, holding the perception that it's possible for our awareness to extend past the body. Feeling the air on the surface of our skin. And really, there's no solid difference between our body and our environment. The only real difference is in our perception of it. We perceive them as separate. But what if we hold the perception that we can integrate with this environment? We can expand our awareness out into it. Expand our awareness through the air. Gradually, just like before, expanding our awareness bit by bit with each breath, but this time expanding past the body. A visual cue you might find helpful is to imagine that as the breath expands out past the body, as it flows out from the body, this breath and our awareness kind of becomes a bubble around the body, a sphere of awareness. allowing this bubble of awareness to slowly expand, filling the room that we're in, the space that we're in. And as this orb of awareness expands, sensation of breath expands along with it, filling the room. Slowly and gradually. It's almost as if we're diffusing the body into its environment. And lastly, just gently drawing our awareness back into our center, aware of the sensation where the body or the feet meet the floor. meets its seat. And taking a few good deep breaths all the way down through the body. And slowly opening the eyes and stretching if needed. Never in a rush to leave the meditation. So, as always, I'm interested to hear if anyone would like to share how that experience of meditation was for them. It was a bit different than how we normally do it. This was, I didn't really mention it at the beginning of the class because it wasn't until after I hit the bell that I decided to do it. This was what you would consider the I believe it was last week, we did the four elements. And this would be the element of space. So we did fire, water, earth, and wind last week. This would be the element of space. It's kind of not like outer space, but the space between things, the space all around us, and the space within us. Like we're, what, 90% empty space or something like that. So, yeah. This is kind of a way of getting in touch with that. And one of the things that I found really beneficial about this is particularly when it gets to the kind of the dissolving the body into the surroundings, or sensation and awareness into our surroundings, where we're not trying to like cut off awareness or go into like a trance or anything like that. We're just allowing our awareness and our sensation to expand past perceived borders that we have. We perceive these borders, and because we have those perception of perceived borders, when we're working on sensation, the sensation and our awareness comes up against those borders. If we adopt different perceptions while we're focusing within, those borders become permeable. They're not a solid border, because really this isn't a solid border. Like I said, it's like 90% empty space. It's not that different from the air around it. It's mainly just that we perceive a difference. One of the benefits of this type of meditation, this element of space, is really helpful if we have chronic pain, for dealing with chronic pain, because it's something I've noticed myself is when you dissolve the body into the surroundings, a lot of the times tension or tightness or things like that that we can't really relax kind of relaxes on its own. because we've temporarily abandoned the perception of this solid body, and we're more of this like cloud of sensation or cloud of awareness. Makes it a lot easier to relax tension, because for a moment, for brief moments during this meditation, there's nothing for attention to come up against. Things can flow, things can work themselves out. And it's almost in a way, it's almost like stretching. We stretch the body and our awareness out, or we expand it out. And yeah, it's almost like we stretch everything out. And then when we come back in, it's almost like there's more space within us, almost like this expanded space. When we come back in, at least within my own experience, it's almost like all this space that we expanded to, when we come back, is actually within us. It's more spacious. A sutra that I often reference is the Buddha was talking about. He uses the example of salt, like a lump of salt in a glass of water. If you dump the lump of salt in the water, it will be unbearably salty. But if you dump a lump of salt into a river, because of the sheer difference in scale, you won't even notice the salt if you drink from the river. In the same way, when we expand our mind, our awareness, our consciousness, and our sensation of the body, the pain that's in the body seems a lot more minuscule because it's been stretched out. Perhaps an easier way of perceiving that is if all of the various pain that we have throughout our body was all collected into one point, you can imagine that would be pretty unbearably painful. If all the pain that we have in our body is stretched thin, then sensation is a lot subtler and the pain is a lot subtler. And it can give the mind a break when we're in a lot of pain. It's one of the main uses of space meditation. If form and sensation is uncomfortable, go to space. Sherry shared, oh, hello, Roberto. Good evening. Sherry shared, expanding my awareness seemed to ease that vague sense of anxiety in my chest that I imagine a lot of us are feeling. Yeah. Yeah, to me, the kind of the chest cavity feels very, I think partially because there's like the rib cage around it, there's this very solid feeling of it's kind of trapped, and a lot of emotion, a lot of sensation tends to get trapped in our hearts, and trapped in sensation of the chest. And this type of meditation where we have, as I mentioned, those brief moments of intangibility or non-form, it allows things to kind of stretch themselves out, air themselves out, escape. We're not escaping, but we're allowing sensations to escape. Right? They're not trapped or bottled up or anything like that. So I'm glad you found it helpful. One of the you can do this in any sense. I didn't typically, if I'm doing it on my own, I expand well beyond the room around me. But if you're new to it, if you're relatively new to it, meaning you've only done it, you've only maybe been practicing it a few months or something like that, you can get kind of lightheaded if you try to. That's why, like I said, gradually, like 18 times during the instructions, you can get kind of lightheaded if you try to expand too quickly. Because of that lack of groundedness, that lack of feeling grounded, because we're expanding and we're dissolving into that expansion, it can make you lightheaded, dizzy, headache, things like that. One of the variations of this that I really enjoy is like laying down on like a bed of grass. I find this style of meditation is a lot easier to get in touch with if you're out in nature, because the sound of the wind through the trees and the bird chirping and everything like that, it's pleasant. It's relatively pleasant for most people, unless you're like terrified of birds or something. relatively pleasant, so we can kind of use that sound as almost as an anchor or something to allow the mind to expand out. Because it's something pleasant that it wants to be met with, it's easier to expand it out. Plus, in nature, there's a stronger sense of connectedness if we tune into it than there is in our concrete boxes. Um, so, so one variation of this is laying down on grass, and instead of expanding in every direction, just allowing the mind to expand upon the surface of the grass out as far as you want. It's a very grounding feeling, but it's still like kind of this dissolving into space. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything else? Oh, and the one more thing that I'll say is this type of space as well is I often mention that I don't do full, like, I don't necessarily do complete meditations because I would have to talk too much within the time frame that we have, right? Like even the one I normally do, cycling through the body, you would actually cycle through like 2 or 3 times before you expand the entire body and are aware of the entire body. Typically, this type of space element is something that you would do in tandem with the elements that we did last week, but they can feel very different. They're a very different approach, so I don't lead them together. But when you go through kind of giving rise to our awareness of those 4 elements of fire, water, earth, wind, meaning warmth, fire, coolness, water, a sense of movement is air, and then a sense of solidity or groundedness is earth. When you go through all 4 of those, you're also less likely to get lightheaded when you start with the space. But if you go through kind of, if you want to say like activating or becoming aware of those elements of sensation, and then you move to space, like I said, there's less solidity. There's less form getting in the way. So the elements of sensation kind of find their own balance, find their own equilibrium, because there's less dams blocking everything up, or less of a perception of dams blocking everything up. So they can be really beneficial when used together. Tara shared, I also felt a lot in my chest, very open now, a little uncomfortable getting there. The element of space meditation can be a bit uncomfortable because it's something so foreign. And it's kind of directly opposed to how we normally view things. Like, this is me, this is my body, this is form, this is solid, and then everything out there is other. This is self, this is other. And with this type of formless meditation or this space meditation, it's that basically questioning that underlying principle, questioning and adopting a perception of, well, there's not really that solid of a difference between self and other. There's just reality, or however you want to put it. And then we perceive a self and an other. So it's kind of diametrically opposed with how we naturally perceive things. But as you mentioned that it did help open things up. A little bit uncomfortable, but beneficial. And with time, this expanding becomes more comfortable as well, once it becomes a skill. Brad shared, Roberto said, thank you for guiding the sit. You're welcome, happy to. And then Brad shared, hi Travis, Brad in Phoenix. I installed a 3-bowl fountain in my living room that has really deepened my meditation. It's been great in my living room with my Buddha statue. I made it a Zen garden. That's awesome. I really love like the water features, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying about like the nature sounds helping too. If you have something like nature sounds, it can help you really expand out into the environment. So that's awesome. You're welcome, Tara. Yeah. I had something I wanted to talk about, but now I can't quite remember what that was. So if anyone else has any questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, we'll close up just a little bit early. Thank you all for sticking around. I know a 40-minute meditation might have felt a bit long, but it's been a while since we had a solid 40-minute sit, so I felt like doing that today. Plus, with space meditation, it's good to have the space to focus into, so I'm not talking the whole time. Sherry shared, you mentioned nature sounds. I was connecting with my dog's breathing. That's cool. That can be something that's really focusing, really centering, is whether it's the dog or it's another person synchronizing the breathing is really intense. And it can, I don't know, it makes breathing and kind of controlling the breath really an active factor, more dynamic. And when something's dynamic, it's easier for it to maintain our attention. It's kind of like I mentioned in the beginning, we want to, I didn't say it too much this time, but we want to, when we're settling into the moment, we want to make the moment a pleasant place to stay. We want to make the present moment a pleasant moment. That's why we go through the body and we start, and in this class at least, regardless of what type of meditation we end up doing, we always start with relaxing the face and the shoulders and kind of a little bit of housekeeping, really. Because we can sit here and get into a good posture, and that's an external posture, but we have to also get into an internal posture. And that has to do with relaxing tension and creating this comfortable place to be at. Because if, and mentioning the dog reminds me of this, if we're taking this adversarial relationship with our meditation, we're fighting with our meditation. And every time that the mind wanders, we punish it by like gripping it and pulling it back and making it sit. And that whole process creates more tension and makes it even more unpleasant to stay here. If we can take a bit of time at the beginning of any type of meditation and just kind of do this housekeeping, get things in order before we actually start the practice, it can be hugely beneficial. When the mind wanders, we can gently remind it to come back instead of forcing it back. Yeah, I think that's it for today. So we'll close there. If comfortable, please join palms for a dedication of merit. May any merit gained from tonight's meditation and discussion be dedicated to all those who suffer at this time. May all beings in all directions without limit or end be healthy, safe, joyful, and at ease. May we all be healthy, safe, joyful, and at ease. Metta karuna mudita bheka sangha teya cetasa chaturisa bharatva yarati samabudaro bhavena samanamaru bhavena sabha sangharo bhavena sote huntu nirantaram. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a good night.